Wellness Month series. So my name is Michael Brun. I'm not the specialist on the subject matter at all. I'm the virtual programmer for MFS Europe. So you can also call me Mickey, and Bert and will probably call me Mickey as well. But today's session is being recorded. I just want to let you know, and it is so people are able to watch it afterwards. And if you have questions but you don't feel comfortable asking them, you can leave them in the chat, and I'll ask them for you. Because the second part of this presentation is going to be an open discussion. Si vous avez des questions en français, n'hésitez pas non plus. Vous pouvez les écrire en français, je vais les traduire. So if you have French questions, don't hesitate either. And I'm pretty sure the presenter is also French, so I think he can help you as well. Bertrand, il parle français aussi, fait qu'il n'y a pas de problème pour ça. So the goal for the September session is really to explore key aspects of wellness. And since we have a great PSP staff that are offering all this great information for us, we're going to use it. So each session is a short presentation followed by an open discussion because the goal is to connect, share in a safe environment. So we'll have different presenters each session. But for this first session, we have Bertrand Vittecoq, who is the PSP for Europe East. Some of you might know him already. If not, well, today is the day you're going to meet him. So he'll go over basic recommendation to live a healthy lifestyle and the benefits of physical activity. So I'll hand it over to Bert for all the technical sports stuff. But if you need help for technical teams, don't hesitate to ask me questions. And yeah, so I'll shoot it to you, Bert.
Awesome. So thank you, Mickey, for the intro. Really appreciate that. So today's session is going to be led in English. But again, feel free if you have any question in French, on peut le faire en français à la fin de la session. But for the sake of just consistency, we're going to go through the PowerPoint in English. But don't feel free and don't hesitate if there's anything that you need, either a follow-up or just more details. I can always go back and explain it in French. So I will start by sharing my screen because I do have a presentation that I'm going to be showing today. Let me know if you see everything. I can't see, so I'll need audio feedback, please. Awesome. So, like Mickey mentioned, today's session is about starting your physical activity journey, and it's going to be about PSP services and physical activity. I'm going to be the one presenting, but we also have on our call today Félix-Antoine Proux, which is my colleague that takes care of Europe West. And we also have Guy Boudrias, which is our manager. So between the three of us, we are your fitness team for Formation Europe as a whole. So good afternoon, everyone. And if you're tuning in on the recording, I hope you're having a good day. On the agenda today, we're going to be going over the CSEP. So CSEP stands for the Canadian Society of Exercise Physiology, which is our golden standard for everything that has to do with exercise, physical activity. And in 2020, they came with new physical activity guidelines. So we're going to go over these guidelines. Afterwards, we're going to take a quick look at some of the main benefits of physical activity. Then we'll touch on some injury prevention strategies. And at the end of the presentation, just a quick glance at our reconditioning program and how we can bridge that into this presentation. And we'll finish off with our PSP team, or I should say your PSP fitness team, with the contact information if you need any further assistance. So let's get it started. So like I just mentioned, in 2020, the CSEP came out with a new 24-hour movement guidelines. They have the guidelines for adults, which are the ones that we're going to be going over today, but they also have them for infants, children and teens, as well as the aging populations. But for the sake of today's session, and since our demographic is mainly adults, these are the guidelines that we're going to go over. And the idea is to make your whole day matter. So moving more, reducing sedentary time, and to sleep well. So first part about let's get moving. So the guidelines for physical activity, when it comes to just being healthy. So So we're not talking about performance today. Again, it's about wellness, it's about well-being, it's about health. So some of the guidelines are to accumulate at least 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous aerobic physical activity, and at least 2 times per week of muscle strengthening activities. So if you look at the little arrow that follows kind of our continuum of intensity, when we're talking about light intensity, this is just something like super easy pace, like just walking outside with your dog or with friends. When we go into moderate intensity activity, that could be something like swimming, not necessarily a swim race, because that could go into higher intensity, but it's typically something that we can still keep a conversation, but we have to pause after every sentence, maybe to catch our breath. It's not like we can just go on a full discussion or sing a song without having to catch our breath. When we go into vigorous intensity, now we're really straining ourselves. We're starting to sweat a lot. Typically, our face becomes a little bit more red. And this is where we say just a couple of words before we have to take a big breath in and before we need to continue. So those are how we kind of break down the different intensity categories. And one of the recommendations is always to incorporate several hours of physical activity per day. And special mention, as you age, balance activities become even more important, because I'm going to discuss that in the benefits of physical activity, but balancing helps tremendously to reduce risk of fall and fall-related injuries. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And again, when we're talking about moving, some is always better than none. And the idea is just to make the most out of your day by adding different types of movement at various intensity levels. If you can incorporate more higher intensity activities, that's even better, but anything is better than nothing. And even things like casual neighborhood walk, gardening, household chores, they always count. So we don't want to omit any of these activities. The second part in the guidelines is about the sedentary solution. So the idea of being less sedentary. And the main points are that we're trying to make sure that our sedentary time isn't more than 8 hours per day. And sedentary time just refers to when you're in a static position. So you're not standing, you're not moving around, and typically your energy expenditure is a little bit lower. So you're almost at rest, but not necessarily at rest exactly. And another part of the sedentary solution is to limit the time that you're using your screen in a recreational sense to less than 3 hours per day. We know that in today's society, a lot of the work that we do is at a desk in front of a computer. So it wouldn't be realistic to say that we just need to omit screen time when it's sometimes we have to do it for work. But when it comes to after your work day, when you're doing your leisure activities, we try to limit to 3 hours per day. And the last suggestion is to break up long periods of sitting as often as possible. And here I put a picture of a water fountain, which is a great way to start breaking up those longer periods. One, because when you have your water bottle with you, you're drinking from it, it gets empty, you need to get up and refill it. But as we know, the more liquids that we consume, we also have to go and go to the bathroom. And that's kind of a funny way to say it, but it forces you to get up and start moving. And that can go a long way throughout the day. The third and last point in our physical activity guidelines on how to make your whole day matter is about sleep. So you want to sleep tight to feel right. And for adults, the recommendation is between 7 to 9 hours per day of good quality sleep on a regular basis. And some ways to facilitate that good quality sleep is to have consistent bed and wake up times, and also limit screens just before you go to bed. So if you're used to having your phone, making sure that when you go to bed, it's put on do not disturb mode. there's not too many artificial lights in your bedroom, because that can affect the quality of your sleep. And another way to improve quality of sleep has been shown to, when your room is at a cooler temperature, you tend to sleep better too. So trying to kind of play with these different parameters. So making sure that your room is nice and cool, you're waking up and going to bed at consistent times, and that you don't have too many electronic devices active in your bedroom. Now, going over the benefits of physical activity. So again, staying active can really be a game changer for your health, because it boosts your quality of life and physical function. So physical function meaning what you are capable of doing, your physical capacity, but it also sharpens your brain health, and it helps manage your weight, because the more active you are, typically we increase the energy that we have to expend, and that can help with weight management. But it also, physical activity reduces risk of major conditions like cardiovascular diseases, certain cancers, because research has shown that some of the cancers that are prevalent are related to metabolic condition. So if you address the root cause with being more physically active, that has been shown to help reduce the risk of several cancers. And again, going back to the balance training that we mentioned earlier, it even lowers the chances of falls and fall-related injuries. And as a whole, it reduces all-cause mortality, meaning the more active you are, typically, it leads you to a longer and healthier life, especially as we age. And another point that I wanted to mention in the increase of quality of life, again, just being more active makes each and every task of your daily living a little bit easier. And if the tasks that you have to do throughout your day are easier, typically you have a better quality of life. Again, if you want more info on the activity guidelines, like I mentioned, there are different guidelines for different age categories. So we have the early years, so from 0 to 4 years. We have children and youth. We all have adults. This is what we focused on today. But we also have older adults, so 65 and up. And if you need more information, you can always follow the link at the bottom, so csepguidelines.ca, and you can break down each and every one of the guidelines if you need more info. So to finish off on the CSEP portion, the take-home messages, a healthy 24-hour includes physical activity of different variety and types of intensity, including moderate to rigorous aerobic activity. So we're trying to accumulate at least 150 minutes per week. If you can't get to 150 minutes, that's completely fine. Anything is better than nothing. And we also want to incorporate muscle strengthening activities using major muscle groups at least twice a week to keep our physical function. On the sleep aspect, we're looking at getting 7 to 9 hours of good quality sleep on a regular basis with consistent bed and wake up times. And for the sedentary behaviors, limiting those sedentary behaviors to 8 hours or less, with no more than 3 hours of recreational screen time. And again, just making sure that we break up those longer periods of sitting as often as possible. Again, a lot of time, we spend a lot of focus and our attention on being more physically active, but it's important to remember that being less inactive is almost as important, if not more important, than being active. And all these points are in order to enhance your quality of life, your mood, improve bone health, physical function, and lower risk of heart diseases, type 2 diabetes, anxiety, depression, and so much more. Now, I wanted to touch on some injury prevention strategies. And I decided to split them into 3 categories. So we have our preparation part, which is before activity. We have our performance, which is during the activity. And we have the recovery, which is after the activity. So what can we do to prevent and perform when we talk about before the activities? So 3 points. First one being good warm-up, then proper technique, and mobility. Why do we warm up? It's really mainly to increase blood flow, increase the body temperature, and prepare the muscles for the activities that are going to be happening. So whether that's running or muscle strengthening activities or even playing sports. When it comes to proper technique, that's always to ensure correct form to avoid strain. And it's important to note that it always depends on individual anatomy, your goal, your activity, and your previous exposure to some of these movements. So proper technique can vary depending on the individual. So there's no one size fits all. Let's say a squat is not going to look the same depending on who you ask. And that's what we're trying to make you understand is that, again, everyone's body is different. So it wouldn't be fair to judge someone's technique when everyone's different. And the last one, mobility, is to improve joint range of motion. So the more range of motion that you have, typically the less prone to injury you are, because when you're doing your activities, you'll have to go in these different ranges. So making sure that you have prior mobility helps a lot. For the second part, when it comes to performance or during the activity, 3 points again, we have strengthening, balance training, and cool down. So first one, strengthening. Why is strengthening important in injury prevention? Well, the stronger you are, the stronger your muscles are, the stronger your body is, the more resilience you have and the more stability. So being stronger is actually one of the best way to reduce the risk of injury. And it also helps you bounce back faster, because the stronger you are, the more muscle resilience you have, the faster you're going to come back from an injury. Because sometimes injuries happen and that's okay. But it's making sure that we have the proper process to get back to function or to get back to performance. Second one, balance training. It improves stability and it reduces the risk of injury during movement, because if you have more balance, you have less chance of falling. And when you fall, you have more risk of getting injured. And the last one, cool down, which some would also put in the recovery or the after activity. But for the sake of the presentation today, I wanted to put it during the activity because I do see cool down as being a part of your actual session, and it aids in recovery, and it helps prevent or reduce your soreness symptoms. So when you do a lot of activity and a lot of intensity, you tend to be very sore or have muscle fatigue. Cool down helps kind of reduce those symptoms. Finally, our last pillar, we have our recovery. What's the after activity? So again, 3 points. First one being sleep and rest days, nutrition, and stress management. So for sleep and rest days, again, it's important to work out. It's important to do those different physical activities. But to get the most out of them, you have to make sure to recover, because that's where you get the adaptations. So making sure that you have proper sleep and making sure that you have proper rest days is essential for recovery and for muscle or tissue repair. When it comes to nutrition, well, what you eat is what fuels your body, and that's what fuels your performances, and it helps in muscle recovery. Finally, stress management. It helps reduce risk of injury from fatigue, because the more stressed you are, there is a response from your body. The more stressed, the more prone to injury that you are. So making sure to find ways to manage that stress. And that's a very good segue to the next session that we're going to be having with our social working team that have developed a tool to help on mental well-being. So I won't go too much into detail for the stress management portion, but it is very important for injury prevention. That's all I wanted to say. So that's it for the part about so guidelines, physical activities, and injury prevention. Now I wanted to give you a little bit of info about our reconditioning program here in Europe, and it kind of bridges the gap pretty well. We talked about injury prevention and how, but if you get injured now, what can you do to get back to a certain level of function? So when it comes to our reconditioning program here in Formation Europe, it provides consistent and seamless physical fitness and reconditioning programs to help members that are ill, injured, or deconditioned, and to transition between the acute. So just after you get injured, you have to rehabilitate. You typically see the medical team or physio team. So we're just in between the rehab and then the actual physical fitness conditioning where you're back to your regular activities. Finally, our PSP team, like I mentioned at the beginning of the session, our manager, Guy Boudrias, and myself and Felix, we take care of Europe as a whole, but he has Europe West and I have Europe East. So if you have any questions regarding anything that we discussed today in the session, or even if you just want to talk about sports, fitness, reconditioning, and all our programs and initiatives, please send us an email and we'll be glad to help you out. And with that, that's the end of my presentation. Donc, c'est la fin de la présentation. Merci encore d'avoir participé. Donc là, c'est le moment où est-ce qu'on veut ouvrir le plancher aux discussions. Et si jamais il y a des gens qui ont des questions, on est là pour y répondre. So, thank you. Do we have any questions now? And I will be stopping the share just so that I can see chat and faces too. Yes.
So I have a question. As someone who sort of just recently started going to the gym, where should I start? Like, it's kind of intimidating at first. So what would be your suggestions for someone who's just starting out?
So for someone that's starting out, again, it's a completely valid feeling. There's a lot in the gym. It's an intimidating environment. And sometimes you don't know where to start. That's just reality. What I would suggest is to start as little as you can. So sometimes people have the preconception that they need to be all out in the gym. They need to be there every day to get some gains. But really, it's about creating healthy habits. It's about creating a healthy relationship, a positive relationship with this new environment. So even if it's just going there once a week, 10 minutes at a time, getting accustomed to the different machines and just focusing on like general movements. So I like to look at the movement patterns because they transfer easily to your day-to-day. So things like squatting, so getting up and down from your chair, things like pushing open a door or pulling open a big door, carrying stuff, lunging. So not focus on things that are super specific, but start with like the broader movements and just taking it as easy as you can. So if you want to think about your something like a routine, like how many days I need to be going to the gym, or again, just one time a week, you do a little bit of everything, full body movement, and then you build up from it. So you start by getting comfortable in the environment and then progress, incorporate more sessions, more exercises as you get more confident.
Thank you. If there's any other questions on anything fitness, feel free to ask. I have another one, but I'll let the floor before answer some. Yes, go ahead, Felix.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Bertrand. I thought that was really informative. And I'd just like to add on your previous answer as well. So Bertrand is hitting the nail right on the head here, talking about frequency versus intensity. So when you first start your fitness journey, let's you really want to focus on just getting out there and trying to accumulate some minutes, up to 150 minutes of activity per week, and really focusing on that portion first, and then you can look at intensity. And the second thing I would add is to focus on completing activities that get you moving, but that you also enjoy doing. You can maybe force yourself for a couple of weeks or days at doing the hardest fitness program in the gym. But at the end of the day, if you don't enjoy doing it, you're most likely not going to commit for long enough to see the results from that. So try to do activities that you enjoy doing. You'll enjoy playing badminton, or maybe pickleball. Do you enjoy the gym? Do you enjoy individual programs, or do you enjoy group settings? Maybe getting the social component as well. That could help you out adhere to your fitness program. So make sure you enjoy whatever you're doing so that you can actually do it long enough to see the results and the fruits of your labor.
Thank you, Felix. That's actually, I completely omitted that, and I appreciate that. Again, just to summarize, consistency will beat intensity 9 times out of 10. So again, making sure that you enjoy what you're doing. Any other questions?
Say if I have a couple of old injuries. So how would you navigate injuries within the gym in the sense, how could I say this? It's I injured myself in the past, but I'm not sure how to get that into my routine, and I'm kind of scared of making it worse. So what would be your suggestions towards an injury or old injuries?
Well, the first part, if you have access to someone like me or Felix, I'd say reach out because we can always make individual programs that are tailored around the injury. But if you don't, and if you just want to hear about like the general ideas, what I typically recommend is not avoiding the, so you don't want to babysit an injury because, and that was for a long time, that was the recommendation. When you get injured, you're told to avoid what makes the injury worse and to rest a lot to make sure that you get the chance to rebuild. But what we realized through a lot of research and over time is that you have to see the body as a machine of adaptation. It's going to adapt to what kind of stimulus you provide it. So if you want to get better and improve on your function, you have to find ways to stimulate the injured area. Again, you're not trying to go back to super intense activities, but just making sure to see, okay, what can I tolerate in my current condition? So if I have a knee injury and it hurts bending the knee, well, I'm not saying to go for a full squat all the way down to the ground, but can you do like a partial squat? Because at some point, you're probably going to have to sit on your chair, or if you're going down to the toilet, you're going to have to bend your knee to sit down. So making sure that the body gets more and more exposure is going to help kind of kickstart that repair process or strengthening process. So finding ways and understanding, okay, this is where I'm at, this is what I can tolerate, and not avoiding the movement, because if you don't use it, you're going to lose it at the end of the day. So you want to make sure to just find ways and just go slow. Make sure to focus on control. You don't want to be crushing out 40 reps of like lunges or squats when you know that your knees aren't super strong. So maybe just like start with one set of 5 reps and see how the body reacts. And then if that works, slowly progress and slowly work on maybe incorporating a little bit more load and play around with the different movements. So I hope that helps.
All right, I'm looking at the chat and I don't see any more questions. So if you have any more questions, I think now is your time. If not, I know that the PSP team is always available. Oh, perfect. I'll let you go, Felix.
Yeah, just one last thing. When Bertrand talked about injury prevention, I looked at his points and I saw mobility, balance, strengthening, and stress management. And all that will be able to be achieved through mobility and yoga, especially. So I'd like to put a shameless plug. I've been recording virtual yoga sessions through the CAF Fitness Facebook page and YouTube channel. It's a great resource. There's about 25 various classes there that are available to anyone that would like to watch them. So again, if you are interested in this, I invite you to visit Facebook or YouTube and look for CAF Fitness, ou en français, en forme avec les forces armées canadiennes. And these classes are all bilingual as well. The final 20 about sessions are all bilingual. So if you'd like to work on mobility, balance, strengthening, and also stress management, we'll see you at the CAF Fitness page. Merci.
That was the perfect segue, Felix, for my next point. So you will be seeing more and more content from PSP. It's more Europe-wide content, and we're happy about that. But yes, please use our resources as we have Felix. And speaking on new content, so this week was just the first of many sessions. This is the first one of our 3-week session. So I hope you will be able to join us next week for the second session with our social worker on the Europe side, Michael Brunix. The second session is entitled I Feel Better When, Tips and Tricks for Well-Being. So Michael has created a great tool that I won't get into too much details, but I'll let you discover that next week. Hopefully, we'll be seeing you either live or we'll be seeing you on the recording, as in you will be seeing us during the recording. And I would just like to thank everyone, and I hope you have a great day. If you have anything else to add, Bertrand, I'll let you go, but I thank you very much, and we'll see you on the second session.
Yeah, all I wanted to add was if you have any other questions regarding fitness, sports, physical activity as a whole, you'll have access to our contact information. There's a slide in the presentation, so please reach out to us. We'd gladly we'd love to be able to assist you and facilitate that start in your journey to wellness, physical activity, health, and all these things. So thank you again for being here or listening to the session. Thank you, Mickey, for putting it together and facilitating for us. Thank you, Felix, for all the input that you provided, and we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next week, next Wednesday, same time, so 2:30 so next Wednesday is the 18th of September. See you guys then. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.